All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish up this this koala drawing here. I was streaming with my daughter earlier, and nobody got to see really what I was working on because of the vantage point of the camera. She really likes to showcase what she's working on, which is a good thing. She enjoys showing off. She keeps getting better, so that's nice too. She has a lot of love for the arts. So yeah, this piece right here. I'm gonna finish it up. I didn't really get that much done on it. You know, it's when we stream together, it's more about her. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and flip this here. All right. So I'll make as much progress as I can possible, and then this is gonna be uploaded for the Patreons, for Patreon, and this might actually end up being a variant cover for a variant cover of the month. Not entirely sure. I also have, so this is very obviously a Spidey one homage. It's a koala, my daughter's favorite animal. I also did a while back a Spidey 300, Amazing Spider-Man 300 homage, kind of in the same, you know, a fully inked koala, kind of semi-realistic, but also, you know, comic book. So one of the two, possibly both, might run with it. I am inking this with uni pens, the entire range 0, 1 through 8, including the brush pen. I like these the tough stuff, the Papermate erasers, the click erasers. I prefer these for small detail erasing if it's like just line art and pencil. But for the larger areas, I do prefer these Staplers, the Mars Plastic white erasers. They look like this. When I get a hold of them, I rip all the paper and plastic off. So, and these things are great for the wider areas. I'll probably use this on this piece, you know, across the whole thing. So, sort of the way I work. And then my whiteout pen of choice right now are these whiteout Poscas. There's different size tips to them. They're nice. You can white stuff out, and you can actually layer it. You can layer the white. Sometimes the white doesn't give you a full white coverage in the area that you choose to use it in. I'll probably bring it in here, probably on some of these cracks and stuff on this barrel right here, but and maybe on some of the contour of the hair to get a few loose hairs in there. But yeah, you just gotta let it dry, and you can go over it again. Think of it more as a paint marker versus a you know, just a standard whiteout pen, I guess. This is one I would consider a whiteout pen here, like these, which I have dozens of these Presto pens. These are nice to hit it if you need like a thick stroke, but you can't really work over top of them. And ink tends to I've drawn lines on top of that whiteout before, and the ink has turned purple or like a dark blue over time, being like, you know, a couple of months time, not just immediately. So, but it does happen. Specifically with that. With this one, I have pieces I used this a year or two ago. These are kind of new to me, so just a couple of years of use for me on these. And the lines look perfect still. It still looks nice. Like most whiteout pens, though, there is a little bit of, you know, that dinginess that can happen over time. That's the trade-off. You know, if you want to use a whiteout pen, there are going to be things about it that maybe you don't like, you know. But it's better than nothing, right? All right, so I'm going to go probably pretty thicker than normal on the contour to this little guy. Just because it's a little cartoony in nature, and you know, my daughter's obviously gonna be looking at this. I am using the brush pen on this too.
So, and you know, this isn't. I really like the the tip on this brush pen. It's just the right, for myself at least. It's just the right firmness. And then obviously I'm already my muscle memory is already used to using these markers, you know, these uni pens, so it works fine for me. I do have other brush pens, disposable brush pens. I have several, the Kuratakes, and then I have a couple off brands too. The Tombos are nice too. The oh, what is it called? I might have one right here in the desk. There's a Tombow that I use once in a while. Shoot, I'm not seeing it here. Okay, anyways, it's a refillable. It's the well, you know, you got the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, which are okay. I personally have issues with them drying fast enough while I work. Lots of smearing for me, so I end up using a lot of correction fluid when I do use those, so I try to not use them as much as possible. But the Tombow have different, I don't have them right here next to me, but they do have different flexible brush tips, and they have some that actually work. If you've ever used like a felt tip marker, I would describe them more on that side, with a little bit of sponginess, a lot of control. And I never really know which one they are, because when I get them off Amazon, it's usually in Japanese, and I don't know Japanese. I just trust my eyes. And every once in a while, the vendors that are selling them no longer have them. So it's at that point, it's just trying to figure out, you know, which one could it be. I recommend anytime you buy something foreign to you, you know, whether it be American, Japanese, German pins, whatnot, take a photo of the packaging before you know, decide to toss it, or even sometimes even the probably better off the packaging with the item in it. You know, maybe, you know, when you find a description next time, maybe you'll find an image with it, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's exactly the thing that I needed. You know, the stuff that's harder, you know, to eyeball is if you've already thrown away the pin and you just kind of remember it, and then they have like loose package product, you know, and you're like, oh, that's it, and then you keep looking and you're like, wait, there's like 10 other pins listed next to it with varying degrees of, you know, subtle differences of the how it's produced or what kind of line it produces, and then you're stuck, you know. Then you're like, well, do I order one of each and figure out which one it was, or, you know, there's no real safe bet in that, I feel like. But there have been lucky accidents with that, where I've accidentally ordered the wrong item and found stuff that works just as good, or it was, you know, it was a fun piece to use, at least for a short time. But for right now, I've kind of narrowed it down. I do still like to use crow quills, you know, Hunt 102s, pretty basic comic art supplies. I still like to use that stuff. I just don't. I'm not going to be using that on streams or you know, on videos, because it's just a mess. And those ones I tend to not really be able to multitask very well. So me talking on a video or, you know, whatever, wouldn't be happening if I was using a crow quill. I would just be very intensely looking at the lines that I'm laying down, because I've never gained the confidence that most comic book inkers, you know, use in that. So But yeah, if you're new to inking yourself, I would say try different things. Try fine liners, try some brush pens, but try it on stuff that's not necessarily something that you need to, try it on sample pieces, things that you're just kind of messing around with. I don't really recommend experimenting on something that's going to be published, because if it doesn't work out, then you're just going to have a huge headache and have to retouch stuff like crazy. Or sometimes I'll just work up a pinup just literally just for the purpose of I have some new pins I want to try out. I'll try them out on different areas of it. And worst case scenario, it's a new piece for my whatever year it is sketchbook that I put out. I've been pretty consistent with getting sketchbooks out every single year. So just little collections of, super random pieces I've worked on through the year. Yeah, and with these liners, I like to build my lines, especially if I'm using a smaller pen. I like to create fades using that versus trying to control it in one swipe that we would with like a crow quill with a 102, or one of those like a titanium, like a manga nib. They have some pretty decent ones right now. Ever since lockdown, a lot of the stuff's been very hard to find, but I'm noticing it's popping up more and more affordable. There was some price gouging going on for a little bit with third parties, but I think that stuff's kind of to the wayside at this point. Stuff's returning a little bit closer back to normal. Pricing is higher than it was, though. I did notice that everyone's kind of following suit with inflation, so all right. So something else I do here too a lot is, I'm going to do it here, I like to block out areas that are going to be completely spotted black, right? And it's a term, goes way back 90s. Inkers that say, do you want to help me spot blacks? And what that is they would indicate like this right here. You'd indicate an area that is going to be completely full of black ink. And then spotting it would just be you going in and assisting them by using a paintbrush or whatever. And at the time it was a mixture. If I remember right, there was a special mixture that some of the guys used to use in the studio. It was like rapidograph ink, which rapidograph pens were those refillable markers, not markers, but refillable different size heads, technical pens, okay? But a lot of artists would use them actually for inking comic books too. It was one of the only alternatives at the time, besides just straight up using Pigma markers for an artist. So some people got real good with them. But anyways, yes, spot and blacks and that, a lot of it was, different inkers had their different methods, leaving ink out, or, letting it I don't even know what the right term would be. I don't want to say calcify, but thicken. Some of them would like their inks a little bit thicker, so they would do stuff that they learned from other inkers or whatnot, and they would different recipes too for um, getting the ink to flow exactly the way they want or the special darkness that they want. Because most black ink, at least in the 90s, it wasn't like jet black. It was very. Sometimes it was diluted. Sometimes it worked really well, but it was like not the best with. It would reproduce black with some adjustments, but it just, on the original, it didn't look 100% black. It was looked 80, 75 sometimes percent. But yeah, so a lot of them had methods. Couple of the inkers, going back to that, that I had helped out here and there, were they were using this formulaic way of, like, you leave out a bottle of black magic and then leave it out for a week or 2 weeks or whatnot, just with the cap loose, and then later on you would decide to you would add some Kohinoor, the Kohinoor rapidograph ink, or the super black ink. I think it was called super black, and then some of them would add a little bit of, I don't know, some of them would mix in like the black magic. The black magic stuff is it would come in a glass vial, and there was two kinds. There was a concentrate, which you would have to add water, and then there was one that was already diluted, and some of them would use the diluted one. It would be less risk of messing up their brushes and that too when they would do some brushing. So I've never had that problem. It's what I was told back in the day. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm going a little thicker here than I normally would on characters. I would usually stick to like in between a 1 and a 3 on most outlines, millimeter. These ones here, I'm more between 3 and 8, I would say. Somewhere between there. So, but yeah, this is just fun. Again, I don't know what I'm going to use this thing for. Maybe do another sketchbook offering. I don't know. Maybe use it for a cover for that if I did. I had a sketchbook up and it sold really well, and then I had a lot of people who missed out, so I made a second offering, and that did equally as good. And then had a bunch of other people that saw their buddies had it. They wanted one too, and I was like, well, as an independent creator, most of my books are very low run, low print run, pretty much printed to just a little bit over, what the initial orders were. Gives the books a little more exclusivity to the original backers or supporters of the work, so that way it's not like, at least for their cover, they're not going to be seeing, a million copies floating around. They're going to have something that's unique to the time period which they decided to grab their copies, right? So, and there are, I got a couple completists who like to have, one of everything. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually do the same. I usually pull 1 or 2 copies myself of every single thing that I do, and it goes into a long box or graded. A lot of my stuff ends up it's getting slabbed and graded in that. More so just for the encapsulation. I have books that are mid nines. They're not 9.8s. I got books that are they should have been 9.8s or 10s and they didn't receive it, and it's fine. It is what it is. It's all subjective, in my opinion. I think most of grading is subjective. And I only say that because I've seen a few books in the wild at shows that vendors had on hand, and questionable, like with what they received, being at high or low compared to maybe something that I already owned and had a lower or a higher grade. And it goes, that door swings both ways, I think, in grading. So I kind of just look at what most of us would consider a mint condition book in a collection. If I see a 9, a 9.2, a 9, I consider that to be, an acceptable condition book, in my opinion. But I do know for moderns, a lot of people don't accept anything under a 9.8, just because it's like, well, it's brand new, it shouldn't be under that. And it's like, yeah, but kind of depends, So, just depends on what you want as a collector. All right, so there's a lot of things that I do in my inks here that a lot of people probably don't pick up. I don't know if you when you draw or don't draw, but when you're inking, sometimes you do things that are kind of reminiscent of maybe stuff you grew up on, or other people in that craft that you admire their work, and that I tend to do a lot of these kind of knotted lines, I guess you call them, where you kind of you'll kind of get a line that starts like this, and then it kind of goes to thin and ends on a knot like this. And it's a better view of that. But anyways, it's something I tend to do. I don't really know why I do it, and I feel like I picked it up. Off, it had to have been off maybe like a Scott Williams or a, Richard Friend or somebody. But I feel like it looks really cool, but I tend to do it kind of in places where maybe I don't need to or shouldn't. Maybe it should just be like a clean fade or a bunch of teepees or whatnot, running smoothly, and I still tend to do it. I don't know why. I think when you're inking your own work, a lot of your quirks can show, and sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worst. But because I tend to do a lot of stuff on my own work that I would never really do on someone else's. Brush. And indicating black, also I left this out. You usually just hit it with a few X's so that whoever the spotter is knows that's where it gets filled, pure black. So I don't have a whole lot of areas here. I guess I can hit this a couple of spots here just to kind of show you. But yeah, and really this only applies, I mean, I guess it could apply to you inking yourself if you have a bad memory of what you're, needing to do, or you're afraid of maybe it being an oversight. But yeah, just hit X, X. Plus signs, X's, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, lately, in my inks, I'm catching, or at least when I'm doing like ink finishes, like this was a very somewhat loose, like I indicated where shadows are, I kind of indicated some hatching, but I didn't really flesh it out. I am noticing artistically some of my stuff kind of has been resembling like 80s, almost like a Rick Leonardi, like 80s though, like um, Cloak and Dagger era, I guess. I don't know another way to describe it. It's just something my eye is kind of picking up. Like when I finish a piece and take a minute to step back and kind of look at it, I'm catching little nuances of that, and I'm not really sure why. Like why my eye is seeing that. And I actually have not even been really looking at that work. It's just something. Maybe it's just my line selection choices. I'm not really sure. Kind of makes you wonder how much of art is some conscious level, like something else going on. So this piece doesn't have like a super definitive. I'm kind of giving it a topical or like a global light, I guess. I'm not really giving it a heavy shadow or heavy lit or a lot of rim lighting, So again, just sort of playing with this piece. I will be doing some videos focused on heavy rim lights, the things I like to play with. So it'd be like heavy rim lights, heavy shadows, direct source lighting, things like that. Things I actually kind of feel like I know about. Yeah, you're not going to find me on here trying to tell you how to do your taxes. Like, it's not something I would be good at. So, alright, this one here. And a lot of these pins are on their last leg, so I will be probably tossing a couple of them through the process.
Alright, so I'm going to hit this little arm piece right here. Then I'll start on some of the hair. So, this koala, he's very furry. So what I'm going to be doing is I'll just kind of indicate a few of the larger chunks, but I do want to kind of give it also like not a smooth contour, but I don't want him to look mangy, So yeah, we'll see. I'm a little undecided what I want to do with that, but I know I don't want him looking mangy, so. Again, I just went back to my this brush pen. Very fun to use. An old school fade right there. This is something I used to I used to throw this kind of a fade on everything way back in the day. Not so much of a crutch these days, but it's still fun to bust it out once in a while. When I was a teenager, way back working in Image Comics and Malibu and that too as well, I used to really use a lot of hatching as a crutch, because it seemed like a lot of other artists were kind of headed towards using like almost like a like a Mignola sort of style. A lot of heavy use of like just very dark artwork, heavy shadow usage, things like that. And not every book really calls for that. And I like a little bit of a brighter, poppier feel to it, even though I do like to shade the hell out of everything, So. I started leaning more towards TPs, and TPs would be like this right here, like where it's lines coming out of a fade that have a little bit of a thicker. It goes thicker at the base and then goes to a fine point. Maybe not the best example because I did it with liners, building those lines, but with a nib or a brush you can get those lines very easily. Super easy to accomplish those types of lines. With a nib or a brush. And on materials like, I guess I should mention this, things like leather, things that I perceive to be leather, not shiny materials, things like that. I tend to get a little bit looser with the detail, not so critical. You know, as long as you can kind of indicate the light source and you can get kind of playful with the lines, even in the shadowed areas, like I just did with this inside the shoulder pad thing. Yeah, you can get a lot more playful with your line art in those, versus something like skin or maybe metal, where it needs to have a little bit more of a conforming filling to it, conformed filling with your line selection. Um, yeah, I feel like leather and stuff, it's got a lot more room for play, a lot more organic, areas of play, at least. In my opinion, it's what I do. That's what I do. So. Alright, yeah, so I'm going to hit the contours of his fingers here. He's got these chubby little fingers. So there's supposed to be a little bit of banding and metal texture going on with this arm, but most of it is in shadow, so I'm just sort of going to indicate a couple of them and then I'll leave it alone. And again, on this hand, going kind of lumpy. I am going to be dropping a heavy black shadow underneath of him, just to give the piece a little bit of weight. So these lines here, I'm just kind of deadlining them, giving them some contour, and then I'm going to bring the black right up to them. I really shouldn't even have added some line weights on the bottom part of the shoe. I was just sort of doing it out of habit, but it wasn't really necessary. I could have just dropped a straight up, dead line there underneath of them. So. I'm going to give him some leather I'm going to give him some leather gloves. So you're going to have a little bit of a different texture, contrast up against the visible fingers with his claws. It's one thing I don't know, like, I've seen photos, and also my daughter watches a lot of shows with koalas in it. They could be kind of terrifying.
to cut back here to the arm. Again, I'm just going to go semi-organic. I'm going to focus a little bit on the, you know, like tufts of hair and stuff towards the joints, and a little bit maybe on the muscular area. But for the most part, just kind of indicating it. Got some heavy shadow going against it right here, so that, you know, it's going to kind of negate any outline that I do there with line weights. Something fun, you know, you can always think about it while you're working, is you can always decide you want to do some like whiteout effects, like you know, loose strands or even heavy detail. You can come in into a black area and use like this marker here and really texture it up, like gradation, you know. If it works, you know, it doesn't always work on everything, but if you figured out a way to do it, you can, you know, very obviously use that. And sometimes that's a stronger, it looks stronger visually, I think. I certainly know I've worked on a few pieces in the past which I hated the way that something came out. And then texture wise, you know, so I just decided, well, I already don't like the piece, so I'm just going to come in and try to save it a little bit. You're doing this other stuff, and then it ends up looking really cool, you know, so. So one difficult thing about cartooning or comics, I guess, in general, is that you never really know what's going to work and what isn't. You know, sometimes you're, you know, old reliable. It's not very reliable. Just kind of depends. So yeah, I don't really like to overwork all this stuff, or make it look too much like, you know, muscle. It's very easy to go into fur and start hatching it in a way that looks like, you know, like musculature or whatever. And I don't want that. I want to keep that organic feel, but also want to, you know, have some repetitiveness and consistency that everything else kind of has as well. So. Alright, so there's that one. Yeah, I guess I'll just start hitting his hair. Hair on his head, I'm giving it a little more of a human kind of a look to it. Give him a tuft of hair on top that's looks like it could have been very nicely combed. Got a cybernetic koala here, you know, it's church on Sunday, right? Again, I've talked on this in other streams. I, for whatever reason, really like to ink hair upside down, and I don't know. I don't really examine why. I think it's so I can look at it with indifference without seeing it as what it structurally is, because then I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up. Maybe that's why. Not really sure. And it might also be that it's easier for me to pull lines coming towards my body versus away. And a lot of hair, sometimes I feel like, calls for you to have to do that. Using a very small tip with that one. I'm going to switch over to this. I think I've used this brush more than I've used it in any other piece in like the last year so far. I tend to use it on outlines of things that are semi-organic. Like the outlines of like jeans or leather, stuff like that. That's not supposed to look like metal or steel. You can have a little bit of pulp going on with the lines. It still looks believable. And let's see here. Kind of going against the grain a little bit. Usually on lines, you want to, I would say everything has a dip. Like the lower crescent is the thicker area of the black line in most cases, regardless of what light source you're using. It just aesthetically looks better. It's more pleasing. But once in a while, you gotta go a little chunky on the upper side lines. And I don't know, like I tend to compensate that with even thicker lines below. If I had to use some varying line weights on the top. So again, a lot of it's style. Sometimes your style calls for it, sometimes it doesn't. Alright, so I hit a little bit of this arm here. So you're probably able to see a little bit of kind of what I do in here with this stuff. And so you got the ears, got a little bit of the metal. I'm going to hit a little bit of the metal here, then I'm going to call it a day on this one right here. But I will post at least the image of the final piece up here. Should probably do a video on post edit, like maybe a little bit with what I do with the whiteout pin and all that. A lot of my other YouTube videos, though, if you check out like the regular stuff, you should be able to find quite a bit of me doing that type of work. Using the correction fluid as a detailer and all that. again, using that, using whiteout in your work is also very subjective. It's if you think it'll enhance your work or help you out. Like, it doesn't always. I don't think it's for everybody. Again, it's like a style choice. You know what, maybe I'll do it here on the arm since I'm almost finished with this arm, and then I'll call it. Alright, so just quickly fill that in with the brush pen. I'm going to erase it real quick here. I think it's dry enough to erase, yeah. There's one more thing I like about the Unipins is they dry fairly quickly. So, including the brush pen, which is nice. And again, that's why I don't really use the Kuritake's. There's something about their ink, it just doesn't dry super quickly. Alright, so here it is. Alright. So you can see I got some metal banding going through here. Obviously this would be where the light is hitting it. That's why the line does not connect. The light's hitting it very hard. I indicate the drop shadow. So the line does continue in here and in here. So I'm going to go and hit it through here and break up some of this hard shadow. And then right in there, and that'll be it. And I imagine them kind of stacked where there's maybe a little bit of a shimmy on each edge. So I'm going to be consistent with using that exact same edge, which is going to be right here on this side of this line. And you don't have to complete the line going through it if you're going to do whiteout effects like this. You can just indicate it if you want, or whatever floats your boat. So yeah, it's probably good like that. So you get the indication that it continues up through the arm. It doesn't do any serious damage to the line art underneath. So, alright, that's going to be it for that one, and I'll be sure to post some more stuff very soon.